Hello and welcome to CVR English. I'm Zinat and these are the top updates about world. OpenAI, Alphabet, Meta platforms and other companies developing artificial intelligence software have made commitments to develop safe, secure and trustworthy technologies. US President Joe Biden.
Over the past year, my administration has taken action to guide responsible innovation. Last October, we introduced the first of its kind AI Bill of Rights. In February, I signed an executive order to direct the agency to protect the public from algorithms that discriminate. In May, we unveiled a new strategy to establish 7 new AI research institutes to help drive breakthroughs in responsible AI intervention. And today, I'm pleased to announce that these 7 companies have agreed to voluntary commitments for responsible innovation. These commitments, which the companies will implement immediately, underscore 3 fundamental principles: safety, security, and trust. These commitments are real and they're concrete. They're going to help the industry fulfill its fundamental obligation to Americans to develop safe, secure, and trustworthy technologies that benefit society and uphold our values and our shared values. Let me close with this. We'll see more technology change in the next 10 years or even in the next few years than we've seen in the last 50 years. In the weeks ahead, I'm going to continue to take executive action to help America lead the way toward responsible innovation. And we're going to work with both parties to develop appropriate legislation and regulation. Over the past year, my administration has taken action to guide responsible innovation. Last October, we introduced the first of its kind AI Bill of Rights.
Former President Donald Trump's trial over his alleged mishandling of classified documents will begin on May 20 next year, according to a U.S. court order.
I had every right to have these documents.
Donald Trump's trial on federal charges he illegally retained classified documents was set for May 2024, right in the middle of the Republican presidential primary and 6 months ahead of the general election. U.S. federal judge Aileen Cannon on Friday rejected the former president's request to delay the trial until after the November 2024 contest, but she set the trial months later than the December start date federal prosecutors had requested. A Trump spokesperson said the trial date, quote, allows President Trump and his legal team to continue fighting the criminal case. A spokesperson for U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith declined to comment when he announced the charges he promised to seek a speedy trial. But Trump's lawyers pushed back, resisting setting a trial date and arguing that any trial should take place after the election. The former president has pleaded not guilty to charges that he unlawfully kept top-secret documents related to national security after he left office and lied to officials who sought to recover them.
Threatening me with 400 years in prison.
The case is one of several legal battles Trump faces as he campaigns for 2024. The former president is set to go to trial in Manhattan on March 25th on separate charges that he falsified business records to conceal a hush money payment to a porn star. And just this week, Trump said he received a letter saying he is a target of a grand jury investigation into efforts to overturn his 2020 election defeat.
We will never give up. We will never concede. I had every right to have these documents.
Donald Trump's trial on federal charges he illegally retained classified documents was set for May 2024, right in the middle of the Republican presidential primary and 6 months ahead of the general election. U.S. federal judge Aileen Cannon on Friday rejected the former president's request to delay the trial until after the November 2024 contest, but she set the trial months later than the December start date.
The United Nations Security Council meets to discuss the Black Sea Grain Initiative after Russia exited the landmark grain deal that allowed the safe passage of cargo ships carrying Ukrainian grain from the country's ports. Russia is simply using the Black Sea as blackmail. It's playing political games. Linda Thomas Greenfield, United States ambassador to the UN, tells the Security Council.
Humanity hostage. And the United States has information that the Russian military may expand its targeting of Ukrainian grain facilities to include attacks against civilian shipping in the Black Sea. Our information also indicates that Russia laid additional sea mines in the approaches to Ukrainian ports. We believe this is a coordinated effort to justify any attacks against civilian ships in the Black Sea and lay blame on Ukraine for these humanity hostage. And the United States has information that the Russian military may expand its targeting of Ukrainian grain facilities to include attacks against civilian shipping in the Black Sea. Our information also indicates that Russia laid additional sea mines in the approaches to Ukrainian ports. We believe this is a coordinated effort to justify any attacks against civilian ships in the Black Sea and lay blame on Ukraine for these humanity hostage. And the United States has information that the Russian military may expand its targeting of Ukrainian grain facilities to include attacks against civilian shipping in the Black Sea. Our information.
Stock shots of US singer Tony Bennett, who has died at age 96. Tony Bennett, the brilliant stylist of American musicals, known for songs like I Left My Heart in San Francisco, passed away at the age of 96. Tony Bennett, a renowned and enduring American vocalist who produced new standards for American melodies, passed away in New York. A year after the port city of Mariupol fell to Moscow following a brutal siege, the main football stadium has a huge banner that reads "Glory to Russia," with a Russian and Soviet flag flying over it and armed die-hard Russian football fans patrolling the stands, choosing to put their rivalries aside. These ultras formed the Spaniel fighting unit to fight for. The war between the state and the insurgency, which is the one that produced the casualties, is coming to an end, says Colombia's President Gustavo Petro before Congress as he defends his negotiations with the National Liberation Army guerrillas to his criticism.
De liberación nacional. Eso ha traído como resultado una disminución sustancial comparado el número de bajas del ejército y la policía de este año respecto al año pasado. Del 60 y del 55%. Se está acabando la guerra entre Estado e insurgencia, que es la que produce las bajas. No soy mentiroso, es de liberación nacional. Eso ha traído como resultado una disminución sustancial comparado el número de bajas del ejército y la policía de este año respecto al año pasado. Del 60 y del 55%. Se está acabando la guerra entre Estado e insurgencia, que es la que produce las bajas. No, no soy mentiroso, es de liberación nacional. Eso ha traído como resultado una disminución sustancial comparado el número de bajas del ejército y la policía de este año respecto al año pasado. Del 60 y del 55%. Se está acabando la guerra entre Estados.
Admiral Lisa Franchetti has been nominated by US President Joe Biden to lead the US Navy. If confirmed, this would make Franchetti the first woman to occupy both of these positions and to serve on the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Admiral with executive experience goes against the recommendation of his Pentagon chief. According to a statement released by the White House, he is selecting an officer whom insiders consider the top choice for the job. This marks a significant step towards greater gender equality and representation at the highest levels of the U.S. military. In the statement, Biden says, provided missile destroyer, a destroyer squadron, and 2 carrier strike groups. She was deputy commander of U.S. naval forces in Europe and as well in Africa. She became vice chief of naval operations in September 2022. An admiral with executive experience goes against the recommendation of his Pentagon chief. According to a statement released by the White House, he is selecting an officer whom insiders consider the top choice for the job. This marks a significant step towards greater gender equality and representation at the highest levels of the U.S. military. In the statement, Biden says, provided missile destroyer, a destroyer squadron, and 2 carrier strike groups. She was deputy commander of.
Pakistan's military chief threatened the Taliban in Afghanistan with an effective response if it does not stop harboring TTP militants who plot terror attacks in Pakistan. The statement came 2 days after 12 of its soldiers died in 2 attacks in Balochistan province. Several militant groups, including the Pakistani Taliban, are active in Pakistan's Balochistan province, which borders Afghanistan. Venezuelan President Luis Inacio Lula da Silva has now signed an executive order that tightens civilian access to firearms. This move slows down the surge in gun ownership that skyrocketed during the presidency of his far-right predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro.
He reduces the number of guns civilians can possess for personal safety from 4 to 2. Not long ago, Brazilians could easily get their hands on sophisticated guns, including those reserved for the police and the army. However, President Lula da Silva aims to change that. The new regulation also requires documentation affirming the necessity for possessing a weapon and decreasing the amount of ammunition a person can have per gun. This executive order fulfills a campaign promise by Lula da Silva, who was an ardent critic of Bolsonaro's gun control measures. Silva had argued that increasing amount of firearms triggered were responsible for a wave of political violence during last year's elections. Gun ownership skyrocketed in the Latin American country during Bolsonaro's tenure. Bolsonaro had voiced that good citizens should be entitled to protect their families and their assets. The former president loosened restrictions and encouraged the purchase of firearms. Gun manufacturers also saw their influence grow, especially within the conservative political sphere.
Porque aqui tem muita violência, então se muitas pessoas tiverem acesso às armas, então pode acontecer muitas tragédias, sabe? Então eu acho que diminuindo o acesso pode ser que diminui também a violência.
According to the 2023 Brazilian Yearbook of Public Security, Brazil has nearly 800,000 gun owners compared to 117,467 in 2018. Although Brazil has no constitutional right to bear arms, Bolsonaro argued that an armed population can never be enslaved. However, Lula da Silva's regulation restricts his predecessor's statute. Lula also passed responsibility for civilian weapons from the army to the federal police. The army was criticized for weak oversight, incomplete database, and little transparency. Gun owners who bought their weapons during the previous administration will not be forced to give them up. However, the regulation aims to start a buyback program from this year. Reduces the number of guns civilians can possess for personal safety from 4 to 2. Not long ago, Brazilians could easily get their hands on sophisticated guns, including those reserved for the police and the army. However, President Lula da Silva.
Hundreds of protesters continued their march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem on Friday to protest Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to overhaul Israel's judiciary. Hundreds of people took to the streets in a handful of Muslim-majority countries to express their outrage at the desecration of a copy of the Quran in Sweden.
القرآن هو دستورنا، القرآن هو كتابنا، لن نسمح لأحد أن ينال من هذا الكتاب الكريم الذي نحن من أجله نعيش، وسنبقى نحمي هذا القرآن بأشفار عيوننا وبقلوبنا وبدمائنا وبقبضاتنا.
man känner sig också maktlös framför den här situationen. Eftersom man förväntar sig att politiker, beslutsfattare, polisen ska visa förståelse för detta och försöka hitta lösning till det. Men det har inte hänt tyvärr.
The military of South Korea claims that North Korea has launched 6 cruise missiles in its direction. The missile launched into the Yellow Sea between China and the Korean Peninsula are being closely examined. According to South Korea and American intelligence officials, this is Pyongyang's most recent weapon test launch, which coincides with Seoul's and Washington's increased defense spending.
After a U.S. nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarine surfaced for a rare visit to South Korea, North Korea then threatened that U.S. submarine deployment may fall under conditions for nuclear weapons tests. The latest missile launches also comes as a U.S. soldier is believed to be in North Korean custody after breaking away from a tour group visiting the demilitarized zone. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has sought Chinese intervention to deal with the North Korean issue. He says on Friday that he told his Chinese counterparts that Washington wants Beijing's help in handling the North Korean nuclear program and denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. Blinken says that U.S. will take action if China declines to intervene, and it would lead to bolstering its defense alliances with Japan and South Korea. China is North Korea's long-time treaty ally and main economic partner. Hours after a U.S. nuclear-armed
In Sudan, there are reports of air strikes have killed at least 7 civilians in the capital, Khartoum.
In the capital, Khartoum. There are also suggestions that the aid group, Doctors Without Borders, could pull out of the country after one of its aid convoys was attacked. Well,
that continues here in the capital, Khartoum. Now, the resistance committees of the southern belt, the southern part of the capital, reported that several civilians were killed as a result of airstrikes launched by the Sudanese army against positions of the paramilitary rapid support forces in the southern part of the capital. Several people were also injured, along with properties destroyed, and they say that those who they were able to save and who survived the airstrikes were taken to hospitals for treatment, like basic necessities to be able to operate. We're talking about anesthesia, bandages to be able to wrap up injuries as a result of the fighting. The medic group, Doctors Without Borders, said that their team in the southern part of the capital was assaulted. 18 people being physically assaulted by who they identified as armed men, without clarifying whether it's the Sudanese army or the paramilitary rapid support forces. And they also hinted that should those attacks continue,
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party has suffered 2 major defeats in by-elections and narrowly avoided a third loss.
That Keir Mather is duly elected.
Labour's newest Member of Parliament was 7 years old when his party last won a British general election.
We have rewritten the rules on where Labour can win.
25-year-old Keir Maher overturned a Conservative majority of more than 20,000 in a by-election in the north of England. His party hopes this is a taste of what's to come.
You voted for change. You put your trust in the Labour Party, and we hear you. We hear that cry for change, away from the chaos, away from those rising bills, the crumbling public services.
That Sarah Joanne Dyke has been duly elected.
The Conservatives lost 2 of 3 seats in by-elections on Thursday. The governing party held on just to the Uxbridge seat of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He resigned after he was found to have misled Parliament over parties in his residence during the pandemic lockdowns.
Westminster's been acting like the next election's a done deal. The Labour Party's been acting like it.
Spain's main right-wing party is expected to do well in Sunday's upcoming general election, Many analysts say the People's Party could also form a coalition with a far-right party to get into power, but that could mean friction between Madrid and separatists in the Catalonia region.
In the heat of a Barcelona square, a rallying call for supporters of the largest pro-Catalan independence party, warning voters of the dangers to their cause in the event of a right-wing victory. In this region of 7.5 million people that accounts for nearly a fifth.
Well, that was the wrap-up bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching CVR English with Zinat.